Hey everyone. Well, today I want to talk about a little bit about lane management and a few tools I use to run my lanes proficiently. If you look at this map up here, it's broke up in regions. You have the West, Southwest, Midwest, Southeast, and the Northeast. What I've been really successful at is running mostly the West, the Southwest, preferably only Texas, the Southeast. And it had been more profitable for me. I've kept my averages pretty consistent. What some people do, they travel from the West to the Southeast or the West to the Northeast. And what I found with that is that when you're in the West, you spend more money on fuel to get to the East. So as it seems that you're doing more miles, your bottom line is less because you spent more money on fuel, and the rates in the West do not support that. Ever since I've been here at Super Ego for 2 years, only a couple periods that it could somewhat support it at some point. But a lot of people like to do that. In order to go from coast to coast, it's about 5,000 miles, 6,000 miles turnaround. And you know, on those miles, you're going to spend about $4,000, maybe 5, 6. It depends. It has never been profitable and worth it for me. So I did that run probably one time. But the Midwest, I would say, is most likely one of the best regions. And what I usually do is I travel from Texas. I go all the way up to Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. And I try to get a load going back down to Texas, preferably, which helps me be more profitable. So sometimes if that lane is not good, I switch it to the Southeast. And if you look at this, I come from Texas to Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Alabama, and those rates have been pretty consistent for me, being that in the past 6-7 months, I've probably seen a 40 to 50 cent per mile rate decrease. So I stick with that lane for myself. What a lot of people do, preferably reefer, you know, the lane's a little bit different on reefer, and so the lane's a little bit different with reefer, so you can survive going into Florida most of the time, coming out of Florida and doing the Northeast and probably being profitable. But with dry van, a lot of places I try to stay out of is Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, because most of the time you can get good rates coming in Oklahoma, but coming out of Oklahoma, the load to truck ratio is very low, so you pretty much can't really get a good average with that. And you know, the loads are, say for instance, 300 or 400 loads, so you're very limited to reposition yourself back into the lane you want to be in. In the Northeast, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, and I stay away from New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland. But although you have those people that live in the Northeast and prefer to play that lane, if you play up and down 95 and go sometimes to the Midwest, you can capitalize off that lane. But it has a lot to do with sometimes where you actually live. Me, I live in Texas, so I try to position myself a triangle to try to come back to Texas. And you know, that's the same thing with if you lived in, say for instance, California. Me personally, I would get out of California as fast as possible, get to the west and try to work the Midwest and the Southeast, get my money, and then, you know, take that hit coming back home. Sometimes, you know, you're gonna take a hit coming back home. I take a 20 to 30 cent per mile hit every time I come back to Texas, because I found that I get the better rates coming out of Texas. When I mean Texas, I don't mean places like Abilene, Midland, Dallas. I don't have good rates coming out of there, never have. So I position myself, if I live in Houston, I'm gonna pick a place within the 200-mile radius, and like San Antonio, Austin, some East Texas, that have plenty freight. With this, you know, I used that board app, and I find all the loads and I come together with an average. I don't pick the best paying load or the lowest paying load. I use that and I take the average, and I come up with a per mile rate that I operate at. But like I said, so I would stay away from Florida also. You know, in even most of the states that touch Florida, because I've noticed that the rates tend to get pretty skimpy sometimes around Georgia and South Carolina, right there by Florida. Most of the time you go to Florida, they're gonna offer you like 80 cents if you're in dry van to come up out of there. So I take that with mine, and I've been here 2 years and probably been to Florida twice, and I try my best to stay out of there. Missouri, places that I like to go in Missouri is St. Louis. You know, anything like west of St. Louis, I try to stay away from. And sometimes I go into Kansas. I don't like pretty much Kansas City, Missouri. I haven't had good luck with that. And I stay away from that as much as possible. Not all the time can you stay away from it, because, you know, sometimes, you know, you got to get there, and you got to, you know, you might see that the load to truck ratio is a little bit better than a few hundred, but most of the time when you get in that situation, and you know, the load to truck ratio, say for instance, and I gauge mines when I look at the dashboard, like say for instance, if it's about 200 to 400, you know, loads available, I pretty much state to myself that the load to truck ratio is bad. So I pretty much got to take any load coming out of there and try to reposition myself in order to get back in position. So I take in mind that. But some regions, like mostly like Ohio, you know, or Houston, Ohio used to have pretty much, you look at the load board and it's 2,400 loads. So when you look at the load board and have that many loads available within 150, 200-mile radius, you know that the load to truck ratio is more in your favor. So you have more options, you know, considering denying loads. But, you know, take in mind, you know, different regions, you have, you know, different fuel prices. So, you know, you got to put that in your calculations when you're configuring if a load is good for you. And, you know, should you take a load? Because you notice, like, some of the good paying loads will go to places where the load to truck ratio is very bad. So of course the rate is going to be a little better than average than a lane where it's pretty much medium. So take that in mind. But I use this. You can get this map and different maps on DAT load board. You Google DAT and put national dry van average. It'll tell you the fuel, how it fluctuated in the past few months. It'll tell you how, if it's up, you know, more, if it has it fallen, you know, a couple percentage. When I looked at it yesterday or today, it told me the fuel in the past few months is down like 1.3% or something like that. So use all those tools to help you run efficiently and try to be profitable. But wherever lane you live in, try to position yourself, you know, because certain areas don't have freight going back to where you want to go. So, you know, you got to keep in mind of that when you're trying to do your logistics and get back home. So you might got to stay out a little longer, but sometimes you in a lane where you can get out and get back. I noticed the Northeast got a lot of day transits that you can, in the Midwest got a lot of day transits that you can get, you know, and get out, you know, just hit places like you can leave Illinois and go to Ohio or, you know, Pennsylvania, and then come back, you know, to Wisconsin, then go down to Illinois and things like that. So with that in mind, I hope this helped you with your logistics and your lane management. Until next time, keep on trucking.